Hi, I'm Renarta Clanton Moyd. I'm a communications specialist with the Cumberland County Schools and your host of Get Connected. During this monthly show, we highlight numerous educational topics that face today's student, educator, and parent in the Cumberland County Schools. About 2 years ago, the federal government awarded Race to the Top funding to states that were leading the way with ambitious yet achievable plans to implement comprehensive and compelling education reform. North Carolina was one of those chosen states. Now, after this break, we'll talk with 3 representatives from the Cumberland County Schools about how Race to the Top funding is directly impacting what and how our children are being taught in classrooms across the county on this edition of Get Connected.
What's that?
I don't know. Something I kind of made.
Ooh, what's it do?
What do I do? Well, thanks for asking. I ring my bell and I like to dance. What do I do? Well, thanks for asking.
Ow!
Yeah, it still needs a little work.
Anything's possible. Keep thinking. Get started on your own inventions or just play some games at inventnow.org. In 4 out of 5 school shootings, the attacker tells someone about it first. Call 1-866-SPEAK-UP to report a weapon threat at school.
Again, thanks for joining us for this edition of Get Connected, where we're talking with Renee Collins, Cumberland County Schools Race to the Top Coordinator, Kevin Coleman, the Executive Director of Technology, and John Gibbs, the School System's Executive Director of Secondary Education. Renee, Kevin, John, welcome.
Thank you, Renarta.
I'm glad you all are here.
Thanks.
Well, you ready to jump in?
Absolutely.
I think we're ready.
Let's race to the top.
Okay.
How do you like that? Boom, boom. Okay,
That's
anyway.
good.
With that in mind, in lay terms, explain to us exactly what does Race to the Top mean?
Race to the Top is a federal grant. It was a competitive grant, and the purpose of which is to spur innovation in our public schools across the United States. And as I mentioned, it was competitive, therefore we had to go through a process to obtain that. As a state, it is a state-based grant. The applications were submitted through the states, and it's provided an alternate funding source for our county and our state.
That's good. Now, with Race to the Top, in general terms, how is it impacting our schools across the country even?
Well, across the country, every state that received the grant, in 2010 when we received the grant, there were 11 states and the District of Columbia, and those participants in the grant all had to address the same pillars. There are 4 main pillars of Race to the Top, and those pillars are data systems to improve instruction, quality principals and teachers, quality standards and assessments, and turning around of the lowest achieving schools. And with those 4 pillar areas being targeted across the nation, all states are addressing the same pillars, but we're all doing it differently. Okay. And since I mentioned that it's innovation and school reform, everybody's being very creative in how they carry out the grant.
Okay. Now, so in essence, when you talk about the pillars, that's kind of how Kevin in technology, John with secondary ed, that's kind of how you all came into Race to the Top, correct?
Right. We chose to spend some of our Race to the Top federal money on infrastructure. So what that means is we're providing wireless internet in 90 different buildings in Cumberland County.
Wow.
And so we had no wireless internet, and by the end of this project, we'll be able to provide a wireless signal in all of our buildings so that our teachers can take mobile technology and start teaching children differently than they have in the past when they had 1 or 2 desktops in a classroom. We've been able to purchase some laptops and some mobile devices that they could take and use with the wireless signal. So that purchase in and of itself will change the way teachers teach and students learn, and it's something that will continue to be in place after the grant is no longer providing money for it.
And that's what I was kind of wondering exactly for someone who might not be aware of what wireless, the whole wireless thing. Why is that such a big deal?
Well, if you were to walk into a classroom, a building without wireless internet, you may see 2 or 3 computers in a classroom. You may see computer labs where teachers have to take their students to the lab.
Physically
Go to a lab. And it kind of limits what they can do. Computers are great, but it does limit when you only have 1 or 2 in a classroom. Whereas with wireless internet, you're not bound to going to plug in the actual device. You can use it, and you can have wireless on your device and move anywhere within the school or the building. So like Renee had said, states are being very creative with the way they spend money through Race to the Top. Our teachers are being very creative also, because it allows them to be creative how they deliver instruction. As we all know, our children learn a lot differently than we did when we were in school. So.
They call them what, digital natives?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I guess I'm not that, but I'm the best I can.
We're all working for it. Race to the Top's helping.
It is, and you mentioned why do we need the wireless component? Well, with the wireless, Kevin mentioned the devices that we're putting in place. North Carolina is going to online assessments in the year 2014-15, and at that point, we will need many more devices than we had, say, 2 years ago before the grant period. So we've strategically placed within our plan of how we're going to use our Race to the Top funds, purchasing devices to enable us to be ready for that online assessment period that we know the state is heading towards.
Okay.
Our curriculum specialists also are working with our classroom teachers in developing curriculum and developing resources. And back 30 years ago, when I was at school, we were going to the encyclopedia.
Oh yeah, encyclopedia. Nobody talks about those anymore.
Where nowadays, our specialists are working with these teachers and are developing and having great resources. So we're trying to have those resources, and through the work of Kevin and his team in technology, they're being able to use the computers, using the laptops to really dig deeper. And then that's what we're going to talk about later with the Common Core and U.S. Central Standards.
That's good. So, we really have to have a staff of creative folk in order to really meet those standards and live up to those pillars as far as Race to the Top.
We want to go, we're moving toward 21st century. We're 12 years into the 21st century, so we really want to make sure that we're providing different opportunities, different ways to do things than we have in the past.
Some of the conversations we've had at a district level also with our superintendent, his cabinet, and also our school board, which have been very supportive of this. They believe in the teachers we have, and they believe that our teachers can do great things with this. We wouldn't just spend the money to have the latest and the greatest. All of the decisions that they've made and we've made collectively has been data-driven decision making, and I think our teachers are really taking to it and doing a great job so far. It's only going to get better.
That's good.
And one thing we're stressing, it's not the device, it's not the gadget, it's the content that's being delivered.
By quality teacher.
That's right. And we're using the devices to foster high student engagement, to have the students, the world at their fingertips, basically. And so when we place a device in a student's hand, it's no longer a one-to-one relationship. These children, it's one to the world. They're now able to absorb everything, that the world has to offer with the guidance of the classroom teacher. And we're seeing great advances in student engagement and learning, meaningful learning.
That's good. That's good. Now with that, Renee, as the Race to the Top coordinator, because this sounds like a lot to undertake, you're the person that kind of has to corral all of this and keep things moving so that folk are not bumping in and we're all, meeting those, living up to those pillars. Talk to me a little bit about what you do.
Well, as my job title implies, I coordinate, and I work with all the departments: technology, curriculum instruction, human resources, student support, school support, and we make sure that all of the objectives that we have outlined and the activities that we've planned in using the funds, that we're on our time schedule, we're completing them in the allotted time, that we're making gains in student achievement and all of our goals that Race to the Top has put in place. And we just are communicating with each other. And I make sure that, of course, we're following guidelines, the federal guidelines with the grant, and that basically our departments have the funds that they need to operate the programs that we've planned. Kevin's wireless, I coordinate with his department on purchases and the bidding process, which is a requirement. So I'm very thankful that I get to have my hand in all these activities that Race to the Top is funding.
And when you mentioned funding, it came to me, how is that funding directly impacting our classrooms?
Well, I tell you, we could not do it without Race to the Top funds. We have our curriculum specialists have developing teams, so they're taking the new Common Core, the new Essential Standards, which is a new standard course of study, which in 2012, and the last one was in 2008, and they're taking this, unpacking documents from the Department of Public Instruction and digging deeper into that. So now students are starting to learn conceptually, and as they're learning, they're learning how to think. And the only way we could ever do that is change the way we're doing things. And of course, it takes a lot to build into, and we're not talking about just English, and we're just not talking about math. We're talking about science, social studies, healthy living, arts, world language. And, you know, we're very fortunate that we have so many world languages in our
right. 6
county.
different ones. Yes, exactly, exactly. So now let me ask you this question. You mentioned Common Core. Our viewers might not know what that is. Talk to us a little bit about what that is.
Well, the Common Core is our new standard course of study, which is we'll start that next year. It's 2 subjects. It's English and it's also mathematics. It's K-12. And then we have the Essential Standards, which are all the other areas. It's wonderful because it's just like it says. It's a common ground that we're building, not just in our state of North Carolina, but we're building throughout our country. The numbers change here and there. I think Renee mentioned earlier there was some states involved. There were 48 to start with. I think it's down maybe to 43 maybe. Renee, I'm not real sure about that. But so you can see how we're doing things throughout the country for better for kids.
So it's kind of streamlining things
Exactly.
and putting us all on the same sheet of music. And I guess that would be a real advantageous for us in terms of this area being such a transient area, and when a child transfers in, they should pretty much have the same base of knowledge.
Yes, and I think it's going to bring a lot of continuity,
Right.
Across our nation. As he mentioned, over 40 states have adopted the Common Core, and like he said, that is the math and the English language arts component.
Okay.
Those 2 subjects, we have common standards with those 40 plus states. So like you said, when a student comes in, we know that they are learning at the same progression that our students in North Carolina are. So when they come in, they've had the same curriculum, the same content, and they're ready to just pick up and keep going.
That is awesome.
It will be very advantageous to us.
Such foresight, yeah. But you know what we're going to do is take a break, okay? All right, we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for more Get Connected.
Explore new worlds. Read. Visit literacy.gov.
Take my hand and start a brand new day. And together as one we'll start to see some change.
Underneath everything we are, underneath everything we do, we are all people. Connected, interdependent, united. And when we reach out a hand to one, we can influence the condition of all. That's what it means to live united.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Get Connected. Our guests are Renee Collins, Cumberland County Schools Race to the Top Coordinator, Kevin Coleman, the Executive Director of Technology, and John Gibbs, the School Systems Executive Director of Secondary Education. Now, in our discussion regarding Race to the Top, we've talked about quite a few, aspects, but something I guess that comes to my mind is in putting this plan together, in doing all the wonderful things we're doing, you all just didn't make this information up. You got input from other people, correct? Right. Within the system. Talk to me about that.
Well, we got input from our teacher organizations, from our administrators, even from our community. Back in the spring of 2011, we had our first community meeting surrounding Race to the Top initiatives. It informed the community about what we were doing as well as getting feedback from them and allowed our community to answer questions. A lot of the feedback that we received advised us as we made revisions for the 11-12 year. We've just completed 4 Did You Know community sessions this spring, and I really would like to encourage our community to participate when we have these community meetings, because it's important, I think, that the community stays informed. Right. So we do listen to your feedback, and we appreciate it, and we want it. And any good plan, you're monitoring and adjusting. We have an outline of what we're doing with Race to the Top, but as we get feedback from teachers and principals and parents, we certainly are fine-tuning that and making the adjustments where the needs are.
All right. Well, with that in mind, what are some system-wide Race to the Top endeavors that are directly impacting our students?
One thing that Race to the Top's been able to provide is we started on our journey. I call it our journey. We've come a long way, and we're continuing to grow our teleconferencing program. Yes,
teleconferencing. I've heard bits and pieces. Talk to me a little bit.
We want to be able to provide a wide range of offerings for all of our students across the county, no matter where they are in Cumberland County. As everybody knows, Cumberland County is made up of rural areas and different types of areas. And so we want to bring all areas together. One way to do that is we're creating a lab where a teacher can go and teach to children while children are in one of their high schools with a laptop. And they are attending class from the teacher. So the teacher's teaching from the lab, the student is interacting with the teachers back and forth through the webcam on their laptops. Oh. And I guess this ties back to the laptops, the wireless signal, the teleconferencing, all work together to provide that. So it's really opening a lot of doors for kids that maybe couldn't have taken a certain class they wanted.
At a particular high school or school or what have you.
Because maybe it wasn't offered, because maybe there was only 2 kids at that school that were interested in taking that class, and to create a class with 1 teacher and 2 kids is not feasible. But now with Race to the Top funding and our teleconferencing program, those 2 kids could join up with 2 kids from every other school and create a class over the internet.
Okay, and the teacher would just have to go to the teleconferencing center?
Right.
And where the teleconferencing center will be located? Where will it be located?
It's at our Educational Resource Center,
okay,
which is for Cumberland County Schools is our training hub. And so that's where our professional development, a lot of other programs are there. So it's located there, and we've been able to really put good equipment in there, so we have high quality sound, high quality picture, so that it's not a choppy back and forth, because it all starts with a good teacher, as we've said. And that good teacher needs to be able to teach without having to worry about the technology. Does it work or doesn't work? Is it choppy? Is it smooth? So we've created a lab with good equipment, thanks to Race to the Top, that can really have a good flow back and forth between student and teacher.
That's great. That's
great. We've taken what Kevin's done with technology. I keep calling it's like Skype on steroids.
Okay.
It is absolutely incredible.
That's cute.
When Kevin took us down there and showed it to us, it was like just unbelievable. And I was a high school principal before, and we had students that wanted to take AP statistics. at that particular time, there were only 5 students, but I had 30, of course, who want to take Algebra 2, so I was not able to offer that. So we're having an equal playing field throughout our county. So if a high school was not able to offer a statistics course, they'll be able to go on to AP teleconferencing. At this point, we have 6 courses. We have 2 year-long courses. We have a 0 period that goes in the morning early before school starts for AP Psychology, and then we have another 5th period at the end of the day for our AP Spanish. And then first semester next year, we'll have our history teacher coming in that will teach 2 AP World classes and an AP European. So it's exciting. Then in the second semester, we'll have AP Calculus BC along with AP Statistics. So it's going to give students an opportunity to make them more successful, to make them competitive throughout our country. And that's what Race to the Top is all about, is how we're taking students to a different level, competing nationally, competing throughout our country, competing throughout the world. We want to be a global school system, and with these funds and with what Kevin and his team has done in technology, we're able to move that way. So the teleconferencing is the way. I know Kevin keeps talking about, we're going to have a teleconferencing whole school possibly one day. So he's thinking big, thinking outside the system, and hopefully with technology, curriculum instruction, school support, we're all working together for the best for children.
I think the great thing about Race to the Top, it's a grant that's offered us the ability to get started. But the wonderful thing is we're getting started, but we're also building the foundation of our house. And now we're going to continue to grow and put the walls and the roof and so forth on. So, our teleconferencing really has room to grow. We could really make a difference for our students and offer that. And Race to the Top has went a long way. We would have not been able to have done this without this grant, but grants do go away at the end of the grant. The key is to have something that is here to stay and could be built upon.
Right.
And just
it's strong enough
absolutely.
to support any growth. That's great. Now, Renee, I believe we were talking during the break, and you were going to mention something about as far as how it's impacting students directly, dropout prevention.
Yes.
Now, how is it working?
Well, we've talked about technology and how that's tied in with curriculum. We've talked about professional development we're providing for teachers, but there are many other aspects, and the Dropout Recovery Program that was initiated is just one more that we can talk about today, but there's so many. But the Dropout Recovery, last summer we had 5 social workers that sought out our Cumberland County Schools dropouts. They contacted those students, discussed with them why they had dropped out, what their goals are, how could we as a school system help them obtain their goals and get a diploma. Many of the students were willing and ready to return to school.
Remarkable.
And through guidance counselors, the social workers, they placed the students appropriately in their appropriate classes, in the schools that best fit them. Some of our students return to the traditional high school, some return to Fuller Performance Learning Center, some return to some of our choice schools. Also, those students were assigned mentors, and for those of us that work with those students, we're eagerly anticipating graduation in the upcoming month.
All right.
So
that's great.
We know several of our students that have returned are able to walk this spring or some in August, and we're just ecstatic about that.
Oh, awesome. Just that's wonderful. And that's what I was going to ask you. That's one way of measuring how progress is moving as far as having Race to the Top as a part of our system. But how will it be measured ultimately as to whether or not, there are reform gains?
Race to the Top has 4 primary goals. One is student achievement. The state is measuring, and the federal government measuring and tracking our 4th and 8th grade reading and math. Okay. And for the state of North Carolina, that is our EOG scores. We're also tracking our graduation rate, the 4-year rate that each high school has. When a freshman enters the high school, we are taking the percentage of students that actually graduate within that 4-year period. The 3rd measure is our college readiness. That's being measured by the SAT, and it's also measured by the AP courses. This particular year, North Carolina did a baseline and administered the ACT to all juniors. That is not a component right now of the Race to the Top measure, but we foresee that switching to the ACT.
Yeah.
And then the last measure is actually college enrollment.
Okay, so there is an instrument in place.
Yes.
To make sure, you know, and that's good. That's a good thing. Now, something you wanted to add
well, I was
something,
just going to
John?
say, with the Race to the Top, two of our goals, having kids ready for college. Well, next year this summer we're having a Algebra 1 Bridge program, and it's for those students that were in a 7th grade math class but was not pre-algebra. So they missed some of the concepts that were taught in the pre-algebra. So this coming summer we have, I would say probably over 300 students, maybe even more than that, that will be in the summer program that will now be in Algebra 1 next year. So by our 8th graders being able to take Algebra 1 so early, it's going to offer them so many more opportunities in high school for AP courses, and then those courses, if they score high enough on the AP exam, they get college credit. So all that stuff ties hand in hand to get our kids ready for college and careers.
That's good. Now, you know what, I'm looking at the clock on the wall and I see our time is ticking down. But I do want to find out something Kevin mentioned earlier. When the funding goes away and we don't have the funding anymore, what then?
Well, just quickly, I want to address when we made the plan, we had to provide a rationale for sustainability.
Okay.
So we had to determine how could we carry out and continue the initiatives that we've started. For instance, Race to the Top is paying for many of the one-time cost of starting these initiatives. Then we use our other funding, our regular local and state funding, for the recurring cost of it. So then when Race to the Top ends, it's you know, we can still continue our programs.
Okay. And another thing, those that are watching might want to get involved and help. How can people help with the race? How can the community help with the Race to the Top?
I think one of the primary ways, as I mentioned earlier, is to stay informed and you know, be an advocate for the school system. We are preparing students to be competitive, not only locally, but nationally and internationally. And we need advocates promoting the public schools.
All right. And you know what? Like I said, the clock on the wall is telling me it's time to go. I had one other question, but it's okay. You all will come back again, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Certainly.
All right. Kevin, the way you said that, yes, ma'am, I don't know.
I'd like to come back and tell you more about teleconferencing and more great things we're having.
Okay.
Going on. So
All
hopefully
right.
we can come back and do that.
Okay, well, we'll have to make a date, okay?
Okay.
All right. Well, on behalf of the Cumberland County School System, we want to thank you for tuning in to this edition of our show and for giving us a chance to help you get connected. Until next time.